Good afternoon. I'd like to call this special meeting of the Wilson County Board of Education for Wednesday, April 27th to order. Please know that the meeting is being live streamed through the Wilson County Schools YouTube channel, and the public can also view the meeting through links on the Wilson County Schools Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages, and the Wilson County Schools website. Members of the board, the chair will entertain a motion regarding the approval of the agenda.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Powell.
I move that we approve the agenda for the special meeting of the Wilson County Board of Education.
Second.
It has been moved by Mrs. Powell, seconded by both Mr. Boykin and Mr. Mercer, that the agenda be approved. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously 6-0. Mr. Breen is not in attendance at this point, and when he joins us, we will make sure that the record reflects his attendance at the meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, to be followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Members of the board, we are here today to look at the RFQs that were submitted for construction of Frederick Douglass Elementary School when we get to that point. I'm going to ask a quick question of Dr. Mills. Have we heard anything from the state at this point?
No, ma'am.
Okay, well, we're still up in the air, but we're going to move forward. So, given that, I'll now turn it over to you, Dr. Mills, to get us started with the interviews for this occasion today.
Okay, Madam Chair, board members. Excuse me. You received your packets for the RFQs, and today we are following the same process as we've done in the past. Dr. Williams and staff have reviewed information with the attorneys, and so at this point I would suggest we stick with our timeline and go ahead and begin presentations, and then you have questions as you go. Okay?
All right.
Dr. Mills, and members of the board, I just wanted to outline something very briefly for you all. 7 folks submitted RFQs, and 3 are being interviewed today. Your legal team with staff have looked at all the items in the, that have been submitted, and the 3 that are interviewed today are the most complete of all of the applicants. If you decide at the end of today you want to choose one, you can. If you'd like, in the alternative, to continue the interview process to any one of the other 4 or all of them, that is also an option. But we understand you want to move quickly and thoroughly, so that's what you have today. And if there's any questions, I'm glad to answer them about process.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Ms. Cornetta. So,
According to the, according to the information you followed in the past, there are 30 minutes for the presentation of the proposals, and there's 10 minutes of questions from the board and or the attorney, and they have sent presentations ahead of time or information ahead of time as well, and you've got that. And so, first up is Oakley Collier, excuse me, Collier Architects. I can't even talk well, sorry.
good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. I'm Ann Collier with Oakley Collier Architects in Rocky Mount, and we're just very appreciate very much the opportunity to be here before you, and would like to share a short presentation with you, and then again turn it over for questions, or at any time during our presentation, if you have a question, feel free. We've planned our time so that we're able to do that as well.
Okay,
So I have to do 2 things at one time. Again, Oakley Collier Architects, we are a firm located in Rocky Mount as our primary location with an office in Raleigh as well. We have been around for 30-plus years in this area, local to Wilson County as well. We work here with other projects. I wanted to just point on this slide a little bit about us. We have 4 architects in our staff, with 15 total as a firm. And the most important thing that we want to tell you is we are service-driven and client-driven, and we have an 85% repeat client record. And we feel like that speaks to our relationship building, which is what is very important to us and why we're here today. I will introduce our project team to you, which is sitting behind me. We actually brought our entire team because we wanted you to see their faces, who would be working on your project and directly involved with this. Again, I would be the architect of record and the primary point of contact for the project. With me, my partner is Tim Oakley. He would be helping me, assisting me as I need in the background. We work together like that in our firm on most projects so that we always know what's going on with each other's projects, as well as he handles a lot of our cost control and budgeting for projects. That's one of his very strong points in the firm. Also on our team, we have John Ham sitting here. He is our project manager. We have just finished a couple school projects together in the last 6 months, actually 6 months to a year together as the team, and he would be handling this one as well. Frankie Joyner is over here in the corner. He is our construction administrator. So Frankie is involved in the process with us during design in the background. We talk about things that he sees in the field going on currently in other projects, and we to make sure we are doing the best job for you all and what we provide for you, as well as when it comes to construction time, he is there as our main representative on site and doing that job every week or in the office as need be as well. For our consulting team, Charlie Lewis is sitting back there on the second row too. He's our structural engineer with Stewart Engineering. We have a very long relationship with them, dating back to the early 90s.
Oakley Collier was our second client ever, so yeah, very, very long history.
So very long history with Stewart. We also have Wilson Pugh here in the front. He's our mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineer out of Greenville Engineering Source. We also have a long relationship with Wilson, have done schools together for some time. This whole team has. And then last but not least, Lester Lowe with the Wooten Company. We're also working with them. They would be civil, site, engineering, anything site related for that. So again, familiarity with each other and with the team, so we bring to you a good mix here. One of the things I wanted to put out first, we usually, a lot of times this will be at the end, but we want to put it there first. Why would you choose us? Well, one goes back to the first slide that we mentioned, is that we are all about relationships, and we would like to work with you. That's simple. We are well-versed in school design and school construction, constructability, budgeting, schedules, all of the things that go with schools. I actually started my career in firms that did only school designs, so have a lot of experience there. We are, again, about building relationships. We want you to get to know us, and we want to get to know you. We're also very flexible and know how to pivot and how to listen and interpret things that we hear happening in the market and through this process to give you the best project. So simply put, we want to work with you. I'm going to just brief through these a little bit, some of our processes that we do in our firm. Building information modeling, some of you may hear it as BIM or Revit, 3D, construction building, but this is really the form that we use to put drawings together. What it does, a couple of the things, what it does for us is we build the project in the computer just like you would build it in the field. We start with the ground, 3 dimensions, everything gets put in 3-dimensionally. We're able to share that with you, present that to you as a board before construction starts so that you can see actually not just a set of blueprints, but what's actually happening in 3 dimensions. One of the things with our team that works really well is that it helps us avoid conflicts between things that might not show until construction, i.e., ductwork and beam and structural beams and all lighting and just all kinds of clearances and things that we are bound to provide for you. And sometimes in the field, things happen that we need to adjust and modify. And so with a 3-dimensional program, we're able to do that really before we get there to know what's going to happen actually in real life. It's also very good, again, for graphics and PRs. I would assume this would be something we would want to get the community excited about, and board members and the system as a general, and parents and school folks. So it gives a good overview of what's coming so people can get excited and buy into that. Just briefly, again, we are a LEED certified firm if that's something that's important to you. We understand the strategies behind efficient design. One of the things we found in our experience is, good design is efficient design. So we bring those strategies into every project, whether you choose to proceed LEED certification or not, just because it makes sense. We also look at life cycle costing for you. Schools are meant to last a long time. And so we do not want to provide systems or materials or components of the building that will not last you for the length of time that it needs to last. Again, and I'm breezing through these quickly, but I'll stop at any point if you would like questions. We are familiar with Wilson County. We work here. We've just completed, actually are still working on a project at the School for the Deaf, just completed one there as well. We have worked on the community college campus. We are just starting some studies on the courthouse with Wilson County itself. We come to Wilson County to eat dinner. We come to shop. We have a couple staff members that live in the county, so it is our second home. Even though we are in Nash County, it is our second home. And then I wanted to focus a few moments on a couple projects that we did submit to you in our original information, but just to give you a little more background, things that we thought were very similar. Reddick Elementary, again, is this team before you. We bid this job about just under a year ago, and we worked hard during the design phase that happened 6 to 9 months before that to make sure we had a very tight budget to make sure that we could design the job and the project to be on the budget. And we were successful in that. We'll show you that in a few more slides, but very successful with the costs in there. We have a great school. It is under construction now. It's 900 students, which I think is a little bigger from what I looked at on your Frederick Douglass than what you have there. I'm not sure if there's other things at play there. It was based on a prototype that we had done for the county some years before, although with the prototype design, there's always something a little different between schools. So while we based it on the prototype, it's really, we like to call it a kit of parts. We have classroom wings, we have a media center, we have cafeteria and kitchen, and we have administrative space and teacher support space. So we have this project under construction now. It's scheduled to be complete next summer, to be open for the fall of 2023. This was a phased project. I don't know if that's something that you're interested in for this or not, for Frederick Douglass, but this is an occupied campus, and we had to take care in the design of maintaining the students on the campus and the circulation and the safety and parent drop-off and bus drop-off while construction is happening. So that is underway. It's going very smoothly, actually on time and within our budget still. We have no cost overruns on that at all. Martin Career and Technical Center is in Williamston for Martin County Schools. This project was just completed in the fall of this past year of 21. And we worked with the school system there to create an old shopping center, to convert an old shopping center into a new career and technical education center that was a partnership for the county, the school system, and the community college. And so there are spaces, it's not necessarily an early college, but it's very similar, that there are spaces that are dedicated to the high school age students, but there's also community center, community college student spaces as well. This project, again, we worked closely with the school system in all aspects, including furniture, layouts, collections. We did not design the furniture, but we worked with their vendor and trying to get all of that put together as well. This, and I neglected to mention, the Reddick Elementary School and this project were both needs-based school grants, so we worked from that perspective as well. And these both came in in the money as well, within budget. A couple more. Middlesex Elementary is a few years old for us, but it is also similar concepts in that we were building on a campus and had to relocate students within the campus itself. I saw that in some of the information, that this would be a demolition relocation for students and new construction. Love to discuss that more, because we've got lots of different experiences with how to do that. For this particular school, as opposed to leaving the students in the campus, we relocated mobile units, classroom-sized mobile units, on the campus in another location to provide some separation from construction and occupied school facilities. Again, we recrafted the drop-off, new kitchen, new cafeteria. We did half the school at this time. The phase 2 is the second half of the school to do the same thing, which is not complete yet. A couple more. Bailey Elementary, again, similarities when we were looking through. This project actually was also phased. Students stayed on campus but not in existing buildings. We located large mobile units in the front yard of the campus to keep a separation between the students and the construction, and then built half the school, traded the students out in the mobile units, and built the other half. And so this process took about, because of the phase, took a little longer, 2.5 years, I believe, there, but very similar to the process I would see happening. It became a process of learning about who needed to go where at what time, what made the most sense for the school age-wise to separate primary, elementary versus a mix or and essential facilities. Kitchen was the last thing to do, because that had to serve the students in the existing building and the mobile units for the whole time. So that was a summer job. We had planned it to do that. Again, very successful there. And then Cooper's Elementary, this was actually the school that I mentioned as the prototype for the Reddick Elementary, as far as just some of the configuration of the building. And it was the first school that I worked on when I worked with Nash County Schools. Their existing school was right in the front yard. If you can see if I can do that. Oh, I forget the TVs don't do it. See the green area in the front of the road? Their school building sat right there, about 20 feet in front of the construction. We built a fence, we barricaded, we rerouted construction traffic in so that the students could maintain that facility while they were in class. What I learned here long ago on that testing days were the most important thing to pay attention to during a construction job. When you're occupied, when you're on an occupied campus, we shut down construction for a day or two for those. So just a little more about this. Our design process, wanted to share with you how we work. Again, it goes back to that first slide, but we like to build relationships. So we like to understand what's important to you. And we do that in the very, very beginning stages, just establishing priorities with you and goals and expectations for what you are looking for this project. What we have learned is that the more of that we can do in the very beginning, what has the biggest impact on the budget. So we will ask lots and lots of questions. We will want to look at the school as it exists now to see, what happens in that facility now. Maybe visit another school that's successful for you to kind of see that process. And as we go through our design process with you, we will continually keep our eye on that ball. And again, reinforce with questions and also looking at budget numbers. We have a very good relationship with a lot of contractors in Eastern North Carolina, to the point where we will call and ask questions about current bids they're doing that we are not designing. What do you see in windows? How do you look at lead times? What does this feel like to you? What can we expect on timing for delivery of materials? Things like that, as well as costs. One of the things, you hear the word value, I know you've heard value engineering. Usually it's not a very positive connotation for that, because one of our owners one time said, all that means is I don't get what I want after the bids come in, because I have to go back and take things out. Well, we learned from those conversations, our best role is to look at those items during design. So we don't have to do value engineering after the fact. We try to bring things to you to the table during the design process, so that as we are designing and our engineers are designing, that we can provide you, again, the expectation and the cost, and the timeline. One quick example on Reddick Elementary, I'll use that one because that's so recent. We found out during the bidding process, we had designed everything very efficiently during our design process. When we were in bidding, we got calls from a lot of the contractors that we know that said, this supply chain and delivery times are just crazy. This was, again, a year ago, so they're even a little crazier now. And we don't know that we can do this job in the time frame. We were shooting for a mid-year, because of the way the school system wanted to do it, mid-year was one of the things they wanted to look at. But it's gonna take, twice as long to get the pre-engineered structure that we had designed in place. We stopped and met with our owner, and we said, look, these are the things we would recommend, and we just simply took an extension on the timing to the summer. So we extended it 6 months or so. And we were able to keep all the bidders, had 8 or 10 bids come in, and we're $1 million under budget for that. So I think when I talk about process, part of what we do is not just put lines on a page and design pretty buildings, but it's help you make those best decisions for what makes sense for you. Again, that case, time was a less of an impact for them than the dollars were, and the fact of being able to get things done still in a school year time frame. I'll just keep going. Normally, Tim would talk about this, but again, some of the pandemic constraints that we've seen do apply to timing of materials, and that equates to dollars. Those are things we're paying a lot of attention to right now. At one point, I think people were in and out a lot for COVID. We don't see that as much anymore. It's still out there, but contractors have learned how to handle that. But we will be very upfront and honest about what we see with with deliveries, and we'll know that, we'll pay attention to that before we get to the field and are designing or constructing it. How those things equate to dollars, these are some of the projects I've mentioned to you before, along with a few others. Again, one of the things we're most proud of is that last column that says change orders. And you'll see, while there are some, there are usually requests for increased scope by the owner. For example, one of the things with the Career Center is that the owner wanted to add some additional programming space in the building that we did not have designed, and it was not in the budget. But we had, because the dollars were under budget on the bid, we were able to do that and add to the project. So we are worked very diligently on the numbers for budgeting, and then we are also very flexible and open to be able to do what you want to do and add to the project should you want to. We have a philosophy as well. With change orders or with things in the project, our responsibility is to design it correctly and to design it according to code and things that, that we are responsible for. And if we break one of those, we pay for it. So we bought our share of a door that was, hinged improperly or something that, was something that we had incorrectly in our drawings, and we will stand behind our work and we will take care of our responsibility for you. And then schedule, again, I have a lot of questions about the project, so I took a stab at this. I know we'll have a site picture for you in a little bit just of your site. Design could be 4 to 6 months. That's a little bit of a guesstimate because we don't know your schedule and how you would want to work with us, how many presentations that we need to make to the board and things like that. But in general, our design time, we can do the plans in the 4 to 6 month range. We will do reviews, regulatory DPI. We're very well versed with them, as well as local regulatory agencies. It's another couple months there. And then bidding and contracts are just what they are, 30 days for each. We think the demolition and construction, because of the size of the school, could be an 18-month project. Again, the main thing for this is we would want to get your input on when you are looking to occupy the facility and work backwards from there. And then if it is something that is not realistic, it's our responsibility to say that. So that if it's something that we don't want to tell you something you want to hear day one to have it fail at the end. We want to be honest with you on that, and we would do that. But sort of a general time frame, this feels good for us based on our experience. Again, I'll do Frankie's our construction administrator. We tell them it is the most important part of the project because that's when the rubber meets the road. What's drawn on paper and what's put up in the field are where you see what kind of quality and what of the contractor and our drawings. We've had good success with that. So again, that change order slide is one of those telltale signs there. We are here at your disposal for construction. So we are available. Again, we are next 20 minutes at the most away, door to door, maybe a little closer to the school. We work for you. That's really our big thing. Again, it's not our project, not our job, not our school, sorry, not our building. It's your building, and we just want to make it right for you. We will follow through the project throughout the entire construction process, close out of all the different systems in the building, as well as follow up within the school as the year warranty goes through. We do a lot of state construction work, and so there's a year-end walkthrough, so about 11 months after the project's done, we'll walk back through again, if that's something you would like for us to do, and again, just see how things are going. And it's not unusual that Frankie gets a call about projects that have been built a few years, just to track down a mechanical guy or track down a painter or something, and we're there to do that, to help you do that as well. And then the last couple, I just saw the address and kind of looked up the school. I don't know if this is an option. It sure would be great to have that piece of property behind you. Don't even know if that's an option, but it's a pretty tight site. So again, we haven't done any design on this for the project, but just kind of to familiarize ourselves with your project and this site. And again, I'm gonna go just a picture, so it definitely needs some replacing. It's been there a long time, it looks like. But I'll go back to this, and then the last is just a couple testimonials we have from clients, and we would love to answer any questions that you may have. If I kept to my 30 minutes.
Members of the board, you have questions at this point?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Mercer,
I have a couple of questions.
all right?
Yes, sir.
For your past projects, have there been any cases where there were more than $50,000 worth of non-owner change orders?
You can help me think of some. Not that I can think of right offhand. You know, we have had some cases where there have been change orders in the process. Again, our slide, not all the projects have just owner-added change orders, but our philosophy is to work through those with the contractor. Sometimes we've had things added or taken away or modified in the construction that the owner never sees in dollars and cents. There's a lot of ways to do construction, a lot of different ways to do the same detail. So we do value the contractor's input when things come up that he may be able to do better or differently than we designed. So we're always willing to listen to that. But it's hard to think of right offhand of something that we've had more than $50,000 in change orders.
Of non-owner?
Of non-owner change,
Because we
right,
would expect it if we found
Right,
something that
right.
added to.
right.
And another question, in the past 3 years, have you had projects that were delayed for more than 2 weeks? And if so, what were they and why?
2 years, okay. We have, so our Martin County project had some delays in that, and that was due to some site issues. It was an existing shopping center. The parking area was pretty beat up. We had intended to come in and resurface that, but found some pockets of soils and things like that in the under the dirt under there. And so that did take more time because we added to the scope with that to do a little more work with the soils. That is probably the one thing. We do geotechnical investigation in the early stages of the project to try to pinpoint what the soils are. If we see things that cause us concern, we will put contingencies and allowances in the project to cover that. But some of it's always unknown as far as till you start digging. I know that one comes to mind, and that was, a year ago or so that we were doing that.
Thank you.
You may have to speak to that.
Halifax Community College was one we just finished not in the past few months, but it had delays due to COVID as well as failing subcontractors.
We did have a brick supplier that we had to remove from the job, masonry subcontractor that we had to remove from that job because of lack of performance. So that added time to the process.
Thank you.
Mr. Green, or Mr. Boykin?
I don't have any questions.
Oh, I saw you nodding.
I'll
Go
ask
ahead.
a couple. In designing a building, can y'all design one that could be reproduced on potential future sites?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And it is, in fact, said the Coopers and the Red Oak were similar to that. One of the differences for that is we were connecting to an existing gymnasium on Red Oak that we did not do for Cooper. So that was some of the things where it's never quite the same. But by far, and we added more students, so there's extension on the classrooms, but by far Red Oak School is the Coopers mirrored. So it flips this way because of the site. So yes, it is done all the time.
Towards North Forest Hills.
All right.
Springfield.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, I would hope that moving forward into the future that we'll have some more, new schools being built. So, to be able to utilize a set of plans that's already existing would be a big help.
Yeah.
And when you design your buildings, do you plan for future expansion?
Absolutely, absolutely. We start with the DPI program, that they give recommended spaces and sizes for each grade level with numbers of students. And we start there as a base point, and then the conversation with you all, we add, or we plan even on a siting of a building and a layout, where does the expansion go? Some of the key things are the core facilities, but even those can be expanded.
Well, yeah, I mean, Elm City is a really great, it's a great area. There's not a lot of new construction that happens there because it's on a sewer moratorium. But if that ever gets lifted, I could see a lot of growth in that area. So, yeah.
I actually live in Nashville, so we come through that neck of the woods, all the time, and know a lot of folks that live there. But I do see, as we sit in eastern North Carolina, we watch Raleigh come our way more and more and more. And I think that definitely could be something to consider in how to make that work for this school.
Does your firm or any of the associated firms, or any of y'all involved in any kind of litigation or settlement negotiations right now?
And I'll let them tell us if any of them are. I don't think they are. For us, we have never been and don't plan to be. We will work hard not to do that, but no, we are not involved. We've never been involved in that.
All right. And how many current projects do y'all have going?
Ooh, they're all in a lot of different phases. I know in our submission, we gave a list, and a lot of those, that list in that original submission, those have moved into different phases as well. Our primary, as opposed to a number of projects, the main projects we have going on that would be in design, so I know you're thinking about scheduling and how the workload for this. We have several EMS stations we're working on out in Dare County. They will be finishing up in the end of summer and fall. Little bit of overlap there. We also are working on another probably primary project in Franklin County for a new administration building. So, but other than that, we have capacity in our firm to do that with 15 people. We're pretty well versed at being able to handle load. There's lots of tiny little things happening, and things in construction administration, are happening in the background while we're designing. So time-wise, we're good on being able to do this.
All right. And as far as your subcontractors, when they bid, do they include escalation clauses for material, or do they have sites to where they can go ahead and purchase and store?
For the contractor piece, or
for the construction subs?
What we see, so when we're bidding to contractors, our design project, what we see, it's kind of a Wild West shootout sometimes right now, to be honest. And what we try to do in our budgeting, when we're budgeting during design, is account for that escalation. So we will look at today's dollars. We'll watch the market for the last 6 months. We'll project out for the next 6 months and talk to contractors about where they're seeing escalation happening. So when we give you a budget, we try to be very current for when you're going to bid the project, not for that particular day, because we know things continue to change and the price points. What happens in the construction market is when our general contractors bid the project, they will have they will be responsible for their subcontractors, whether or not their subs have escalation, if that makes sense. So when we contract, when Wilson County Schools contracts with the general contractor, they're responsible for the bid price that they gave you, barring something that we add to the project that they haven't priced. or an unforeseen condition. I mean, what else would you think?
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So to answer your question, try to wrap it all back up. Yes, in a bid market, a public bid market, the general contractor will be responsible for escalation and everything. We have had contractors just this year ask us, you know, because of COVID and supply chains, I can't hold my price. And we say, you know, we'll certainly ask the owner if they're willing, but they're not obligated. You are obligated because you bid that price.
And that's what I was asking. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't
Yeah, it's,
escalatory clause in it.
And one other real quick thing, because you were asking about subcontractors. What we've seen on a lot of schools and really all projects is that as the plumbing and the mechanical and the electrical guys are getting there, once they know that they've got the job and they've got their letters of intent to proceed, they're very quickly getting submittals out, and then we make it a priority to get those submittals
Right.
reviewed and right back in their hands so they can release the equipment, because some of these things, lead times are 4, 6, 8 months, 12 weeks, you know, just long periods of time. And it lets them get ahead of that curve and go ahead and lock in their pricing. And that's one of the things that we've seen happening now with the subcontractors.
and that's a good point. A letter of intent, if things, if you're satisfied with bids and there's just a process of approvals, and if the county has to be approved, sometimes we work with school systems where the county has to also approve it. So if that's the process, what we try to do is say, let's give a letter of intent to award. It is not a contract, but it gives the contractors that piece of paper that says we are the approved low bidder without a contract, so that they can start the communication with their subs. And that is very helpful.
Okay.
I have a question.
Mrs. Barnes?
Do you all subcontract with many or any minority-owned businesses? It's a big push now for utilizing more.
We do. We have several across the board of our engineering sub-consultants. We have several. We have a landscape architect that's minority. Stewart is still a minority owned firm. So yes, we do. We try to make that, as a woman in the profession, I'm very strong on that. So we try to make that we want the best person for your job,
Yeah.
but we do want to make that as well, meet those criteria.
And you mentioned several times using mobile units when you have students on campus while you're building. Has there been any problems with that, any issues with construction with, I know we won't have any at Frederick Douglass. but
Okay. No.
Future.
Yeah, so for other projects or future or other sites for you, what we really have to pay attention to is, you know, how many students are we really trying to accommodate? And then what's really nice is they have mobile units that are whole classroom, like 6 classrooms or 8 classrooms. And so the more of that, well, we found that that's more efficient than trying to put singles around, because everyone has to have accessible routes, your ramps, and also plumbing. You know, there's some really nice things out there to do, and it's just connection to utilities, a temporary connection. So have not had any trouble, even when we've done them on the sites where we're working. So,
And the LEA is responsible for securing the mobile units?
yes, yes.
Okay.
Now, I mean, it could be a part of a design and bid package, but it's probably better for you to do that, because it keeps the contractor from marking it up. There's some markups that they put on everything.
Yeah.
And 2, it just gets that process in play a lot sooner. So it's no waiting on that.
Okay.
But-
Mrs. Powell?
Well, that was the question that Ms. Barnes just answered. I was wondering about the process of using the larger mobile units. Because I know we've already decided that we're going to use one of our schools to relocate our students while we're building Frederick Douglass. So I was wondering what the process you used particularly.
We've done that, and we worked with our system, the ones we've done that to lay them out, to show, you know, how we separate and, you know, how we circulate cars and parent drop-off and buses, you know, how that still works on whatever site. I mean, we can do that as well, help put those pieces together so that we have the right number, the right locations, things like that, so.
Ms. Boyette?
Yes, my comment was I was very happy to see how you are able to finish projects under the budget. And I'm looking at Red Oak right now, and it was during COVID that it was finished. You mentioned some of the things that you're able to do to make sure things do come in under budget or on budget. Anything else you'd like to add?
I'll give kudos to that gentleman right there. John worked very diligently on the Red Oak School. And to be honest, when we first saw the budget and we did some little background with some construction friend, and contractors said, you know, Eastern North Carolina construction is far different than Raleigh construction or place that way. And we asked the question to go, oof, you know, I don't see that happening. But we just looked at every single piece of every single thing that went in that project from the very beginning. And John, we had conversations almost every day about things, you know, and I think that's it. They say communication is the key to everything, right? Well, it's no different for our design process. You know, so we were very proud of that. We were, you know, to be honest, I was just hoping to be on budget, and when we came in under, it was just felt really good. So we were very proud of that. It's attention to what we're doing. So.
Do you ever include penalty clause in your contracts with your owners for if you fail to meet your deadline?
Right, for the contractor or for our design, or both?
For both of them.
I was just thinking that we're working, I don't know if you know, Rod Malone with Arrington Smith is a very popular school attorney. We work with him quite a bit, and they have they have a separate kind of contract, kind of like you all do, that itemizes what's delivered when. The answer is yes for that question. With construction, we do include liquidated damage clauses in there. The thing that gets a little bit tricky is you have to incur damages to penalize the contractor, is how that law is really written. It has to, you know, whether we've had to pay for mobile units longer than necessary, that's definitely one of those kind of damages that's incurred by a system that could be recouped. Paying additional fees for additional time, if that's one of the things. We haven't really had that happen. So yes, there are liquidated damages in the clauses for that.
Mr. Breen indicated you have no questions still. All right. Dr. Mills, Dr. Williams, Mr. Letchworth, Mr. Woodard, any points that we have not asked that you feel we need to ask? All right. Then we thank you so very much for your presentation to us. We look forward to making a decision soon and very soon, and see where that goes from there.
Thank you.
But
And I'll
thank
go
you.
back to that early slide. We would really like to work with you all, and that's why we're here today. We have followed you guys for some time, and so this was something very important to us, so we appreciate the time and the opportunity. So,
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Williams, which fridge?
Which fridge?
That's the only question I have.
Which fridge?
What was his question?
Which fridge? Which fridge is this box? Which fridge?
Okay.
And he said that's the only question he
That's
got.
all right.
Yeah, but I heard him say that's the only
Doggy
question.
bone pillows
Still
back
get these
here.
toilets here.
Very comfortable. I had it everywhere. Is that
Yeah.
We're happy to have you here with us today as you present your data for us to review for consideration for Frederick Douglass Elementary School. And Dr. Mills or Dr. Williams, any questions at this point or anything to proceed? And if not, then we're going to turn it over to you and look forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like, on behalf of Pinnacle Architecture, thank you guys for allowing us to present to you today and for the Frederick Douglass Elementary School. My name is Randy Baker, Pinnacle Architecture. I'm Vice President and co-owner. Beside of me here is Cameron Baker, and over here, working the computer, is Greg Connery. First, what I'd like to do is give you a little bit of background of our firm. And also, I would like, if you would, have this as a, like a little communication. I can present, but if you guys see something, that you want to stop me, feel free to stop me, and we can answer questions as we go.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you.
Pinnacle Architecture actually started, it's a subsidiary of Williams & Associates. Started back in the 1960s with my partner's father, J.L. Williams. At that time, J.L. had 3 sons, Frank, my partner, Bill, and Bob. And it was a company owned by family. And moving through in 1987, Frank Williams called me. I was with one of the largest architectural firms in Charlotte, Odell Associates, and asked if I would like to join them. And I did, 1987. And our school projects started in 1990. So 30 years we have basically been designing schools. In the early 1990s, we redesigned Monroe City Schools for the Union County School District. Moving forward with that, Frank, my partner, and I have been together right at 35 years. And I have to apologize. Frank had an engagement he could not break. He's actually out of state right now. And our educational consultant, Dr. Jim Watson, was supposed to be here, but he got tied up in traffic on I-40 right outside of Statesville and could not make it. So I apologize for that. With that, going through Pinnacle, we started in 2000, 2001. And in the process, and you can look through our brochure, we have done hundreds of school projects. One of the projects that we'll show you today is a prototype school that we have actually, we're bidding right now the eighth version of this prototype. The school that you see up in front of you is Fremont Elementary School. We're in the process right now of bidding that project in Wayne County. And we finished Meadow Lane Elementary School right at 3 years ago. So this school is a prototype of the one that they just finished in Wayne County. As far as this same prototype, Onslow County has built 3 of the same prototypes. With that, with this school, and we'll get into a floor plan just a little bit later on, we have found with prototypes, and I'm not here to sell you on a prototype. It's your school. But with that, we have found as time moved on how it will grow. We get input from teachers, students, and faculty of how the school can be better utilized. Next. This is a middle school that we have done 4 of in Wilkes County. That one is one of those schools that we did in, this one's in Yankton County. Next. I will let Cameron, my son, talk a little bit about technology,
Sure, so at Pinnacle Architecture, we really like to use the tools that we have to the advantage, basically to help you guys out as best we can. So in Lexington, South Carolina, we were posed with creating a new transportation facility for them that would house their school buses as well as their admin offices for the transportation. So what we did is we took our drones out and we wanted to show the client what this design would look like on the site that they purchased. And in doing so, we were really able to work with them back and forth, locating the building, locating parking lots, locating entrances, whatnot, and really come to a design that we thought would work very well and that they ended up really liking as well too. And going off of that technology tangent, we went a little further here and did a rendering for them, showing there's a bus garage, if you will, in the back, admin offices in the front. And I'm going to let Greg speak a little bit too on this technology because he's really in charge of making sure we're on top of everything and trying to give the client the best that we can.
How y'all doing?
Fine,
So,
thank you.
My role is I'm the Building Information Modeling Director, so I make sure that everybody's up to speed on the latest and greatest technology. Our job is to not only produce a well-coordinated and well-designed building, but we want you to understand what this building's going to look like. Before it's ever built, like there's really no excuse anymore. You not knowing exactly the material, the space and how it should feel. We want you guys to understand completely what the building's going to look like prior to, shovel hitting the dirt. So from exterior drone footage, we can also go into the interior. So we can customize all the interior looks, give you photorealistic renderings. We can also give you interactive panoramics. So we can send you QR codes, send you links, and then you can really look around with your phone interactively and see what's inside the space. So,
Greg, one thing. Do all of you guys have a smartphone? If you want to try this, if you will put that up to the screen and take a picture of that either now or later on, you can see that, and you can actually, a 3D, you can move your phone around and see all the way around the facility.
yeah, this QR code here will put you right in the middle of this office, open office area. And
You see me over here laughing. Before you came in, that's exactly what I was doing, and they were looking at me.
Really?
strange.
no, yeah, feel free. We're gonna have fun here.
That's great, that's great.
So any way that we can convey our designs to you easier, because floor plans, not everybody can read a floor plan as well, or elevations. We read 3D imagery. We read interactive virtual imagery. So when we have interior views, you can choose colors, choose carpet tiles, choose ceiling tiles. So we want you to feel very comfortable with, your design decisions. I'll go up next. Here's another sample project that Randy.
Right. This is also the product of a project up in Wilkes County that we just completed. And most of our hallways in the schools are terrazzo. And terrazzo will last for many, many years. And it all depends on the school district. Some people like terrazzo, some people like VCT, that type of stuff. And what we try to do is design projects so that it's low maintenance. And with low maintenance means save money throughout on the custodial and that type of things. This one, I think this is South Johnson. This project here is another prototype of the same elementary school in Scotland County. If you look up there, the drone picture of the school at night or at dusk, and this project we were awarded on was the actual school system wanted to look at net zero schools. So in the presentation, we actually did our regular school with a net zero school. Net zero, if all of you guys know what that is, it's basically selling back your energy to the power company. And some people are trying to sell that in today's market. And with the changing energy with Duke Energy and a couple of the other power companies, they're not buying back as much energy as they were at one time. And so when we did the cost analysis for Scotland County, we found out that the standard school that we produced would actually save them as much money in the long run as it would to do your phenolic solar panels, things like that.
Are you
So,
saying the regular school without net zero is more cost efficient in the long run for
That
the
is
system
correct.
as opposed to?
That is correct, because the upfront cost of a net zero school was in the $45 to $50 million range at that time. These schools, Scotland County, I think, came in at 24 million, something like that. So if you do that over a period of time, then you can see how the net zero school did not produce the same value as the standard energy efficient school. Duke Energy actually did a test on the school down in Meadow Lane. And what they did is they took all of our mechanical systems, our electrical systems, which are LEDs, and came up, and we were less than the governor's scope for efficient schools. So the cost per square foot, I think that school was in the $60 square foot range, energy-wise, and the governor's at that point was right at $1. So Duke Energy said, keep doing what you're doing. Said your schools are efficient, energy efficient, just keep moving forward. All right. Next, this, going back to technology, this is a school up in Elkin, North Carolina. And this, we wanted to do a new competition gym. And before we even started, the owner wanted to see what the additional gym looked like. So we saw the existing school, and then we added the new competition gym to the left. And then that, when you go out in the public, they can actually visualize and see what the building looks like. So what we try to do, let me tell you, we at Pinnacle Architecture, and you guys will interview a good many architects. We all can do the project. What sets us aside at Pinnacle is you're looking at the group. When you're at a construction site, you'll either see me, Frank, my partner, Cameron, or Greg. You will not see another group of people. We take it from the interview all the way through till we cut the ribbon, and then afterward. And if you will see through our brochures, things like that, the number of schools, the schools that we have done for counties that are more than just one time. And we try to build a relationship with the county so that if you ever need anything, now or in the future, it's not a one and done. Because in a school system, like other systems, if we mess up, it gets around the whole state. And we try to, back when I was talking about my partner in the family home firm, Cameron, my son, he's an architect. So eventually, I will phase out. He will take over, Greg will take over, and we'll all be a part of it. But what we've left in the past carries forward in the future. So if we can do you a good job, you will eventually talk to someone else, because there'll be other people come by and talk and say, how did they do it? And if we have failed, then we might do something else other than architecture. But we love what we do. And we're just not a PR firm that some firms that you've got, this will be the first and probably the last time you'll see it, but not for us. Next. Here's another QR code. This is the elementary school. This is Fremont. And you can see all the elevations, the texture of the brick, the actual court inside. There we've got, in this prototype, we've got gymnasiums. Scotland County wanted a full high school basketball court. Some elementary schools just want a multi-purpose. They don't need a full-size court. But in that, you can modify back and forth. The floor plan that we've got, some owners would like to switch different areas. We've got wings in the back, and some owners said it would be good if you'd switch the pre-K first grade to the other side, so that the small students would have a long way to walk to the cafeteria. But it all depends on the client. So, next. This, and I'll let Greg and Cameron look at this. This was a little project that we did, and actually we're doing right now in Gaston Christian. We finished a performing arts building for them. Then they wanted to build a cafeteria. This is one of the first little areas that they've seen that we actually showed some of the finishes in the building that we designed. With this, a walkthrough, the owner and the committee that they got together said, we like it, it's the school colors, but what if we would change things up? And see, this gives you a little bit more visual appearance than just looking at a flat 2D drawing. And with this, we posed this, and then after that, we came back and we actually went to the next. This is what the actual finishes that we came up with. It's a little bit different, a little bit mellow, kind of softer feel to the building. And this project right now is just being built. So, questions about those? All right.
So that was a change that the owner
Yes.
wanted, so that increases the price as opposed to a change that you all did in the process because of whatever circumstance.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. See, that's what we try to do in the design phase. And it all depends on the client. We ask the client, so when we start the schematic phase, just starting out with a blank sheet of paper, we would like for you guys to have a committee, whether it be parents, teachers, maintenance directors, facility, that type of stuff, all get in and say, what do you guys want to see in your new school? We take those ideas, whether it's a prototype, whether it's a brand new design. We take those ideas, come back, and bring you a schematic design. Then we further that into design development. If we see finishes that you guys don't like, then we can change it with these views so that you don't have to guess what the school looks like. And it really helps to have a visual appearance for this. So, but yes, there's no cost change. This is way before it bids.
Okay.
Are those the lights, excuse me,
Yes, ma'am.
in the ceiling? Are those the lights?
Those are lights, yes,
The
ma'am.
circles and the,
Absolutely.
pretty neat.
Yep, they're LEDs, and it's a nice effect.
What kind of
And-
ceiling is that?
That ceiling is actually a serpentine ceiling, and it's wood. It's wood. Because you guys know in a cafeteria, the acoustics in a cafeteria, if you don't have something to break up that hard walls and surfaces, then you've got an issue. Same thing with our gymnasiums and the cafeterias in the elementary schools. We've got sound bats or partitions all around the walls so that you don't have a reverberation. Some gyms you go into, you can't hear yourself speak. In the projects that we've got, and I please, go visit. Wayne County may be just right down the road. Visit one of these schools if, if you would like, and talk to people. I mean, that's one thing that we like. We don't have to go with clients or future clients. Go talk to people that we work with. And we don't do a lot of advertisement. We just let our clients do the talking for us. So, all right, next. Yes, ma'am.
What was that floor in the revised?
It's LVT. Yep, luxury vinyl tile. And we're doing that some now in schools. The school that we just finished in Onslow County, they wanted that in the office area instead of carpet. And that's got a little cushion to it, and it's long lasting. So, all right. Questions, comments?
Members of the board?
Yeah, but before we do that, is it okay that we got the prototype floor plan that I would like to go through the educational, is that okay to actually show a floor plan and how we actually derive the situations? That's up to you guys.
Was that in the presentation that was submitted to them?
It was not.
Okay. I would advise you to just go with the presentation that was previously submitted.
That's fine. And just food for thought. The floor plan, and the reason we didn't show that, we've had people that try to, what's the word, look at it and try to move on with the floor plan that we've got. But that's the reason we don't propose it. But I would love to sit down and talk to you guys sometime to actually show you the building. Let me describe the building. It's actually an E-shaped building. You've got 3 legs in the floor plan. You've got a pre-K first grade. You've got a second, third, and a fourth, fifth. And those wings, in the middle of those wings, you have a study area so that the teachers can get together and actually do some studying together for their projects, things like that. Toilets in each wing. We've got in the center a media center that's actually the focal point of the whole school. And then at one end, we've got the gymnasium or the multipurpose and the cafetorium. In the cafetorium, we've got a platform. Can't call it a stage anymore. It's a platform. And that platform is an area that we have got sound partitions so that if you've got band, you can have that. You can close that area off and use that as an additional classroom. We do in the school have music, art, all that in the actual school. And then in front, we've got administration area. The gymnasium, and this is one thing here, in the gymnasium, we've got it to where after hours, you can close off the hallways, the entire educational part, and the community, if needed, could use the gymnasium and the cafeteria. So with that, like I said, Fremont, and we're bidding right now, is the 8th prototype of that design in the state of North Carolina. And 2 counties, let's see, Onslow's built 3, Wayne's on their second one, Scotland's just got 1. But it tickles me to death to go into a school and to have the staff, even have the students, say, this plan works. We as architects, we can do anything that you guys want. But what I think helps us a lot is Dr. Watson. Dr. Watson is our educational consultant. Dr. Watson teaches at UNCC, and he is at the heartbeat of all of the educational DPI and of all the changes, the upgraded changes of the K-12 school district. Architects, we're in it, like I said, we've been designing schools for 30 years, but being an educator, it helps to have someone like that on staff that can actually help us in the planning and help the client plan a facility. Questions, comments?
Board members? Mr.
question.
Go ahead. Mr. Morgan.
So, I'm a home builder,
Yes.
and we use a lot of, just standard buy online house plans.
Right.
And in those house plans, the first time I build a house, I build it exactly the way the plan showed.
Right.
And then, once it's complete, I walk through and I pick it apart because I don't like this wall, I think that this needs to be open, I think this door needs to be wider. I think this needs to be a double vanity versus a single.
Right.
And, I think that a prototype that you've built multiple times and that you've been able to walk through and critique is, I think that's a really, a really viable option for us,
It's
or at least for me.
It's paramount. And just like you said, if you build something, there's always something you'd like to change. It's just like, if you use a prototype, you can actually go to those sites and say, I like this, I don't like this, can we change it? And you can modify that, but you're actually walking through a space that, and again, I'm not trying to sell you a prototype, I'm just saying that we have one if you'd like to see.
So could you give me a couple of examples?
Sure.
From, when was the first time you built this prototype?
Back in, I was asked that, I think it was 2016.
2006?
Yes, sir, in Guilford County. In Guilford County, after we did Guilford County, then I think we went to Onslow. Built Onslow, we did 3 in Onslow, and then it just started progressing. Because what happens is one superintendent, one school teacher sees, you need to come see our school, and it just snowballed from there.
So can you give me a couple of examples of the critiques that you've made
Yes.
since 2016 to current?
Absolutely. In one area, the mechanical units, we've got unitary, in some schools, unitary mechanical units. Well, the closets were a little bit too small. There, you made the closets larger. In Wayne County has a lot of, I guess you would call them, special needs. And in that one, we added toilets, larger toilets, down each wing so that the special needs has a larger toilet. The rest of them we didn't have. And as far as windows, you can see in the school, there's natural light throughout. That we have not changed. Some schools, they've asked for low sloping roofs. 99% of the time, though, school systems like metal roofs. Floor systems. We have got, we bid in the first one in Guilford was all terrazzo. Came in under budget. But the owner said our other schools didn't come in under budget, and if you do terrazzo in your school, I'm going to get flack from our other schools that we didn't get it. So that's VCT. But as far as the major design components, other than a large gymnasium, multi-purpose, it's basically stayed the same. We did add, in the last few, mechanical mezzanines up in the hallways that got all of the mechanical systems up in the mezzanine so that if there's any maintenance, you're not disturbing anyone. You go upstairs, they can work on the unit, and then leave, and you're good. So,
As far as the prototype's concerned, would we as a system see any kind of cost savings by going with a prototype versus going with a complete design and build?
I can tell you right now, in our fee, absolute, and a design fee, you should. The first prototype schools that we did up in Wilkes County, these were 4 middle schools. Had an architect up there that told them it would cost them more to do a prototype. I don't know where that came from, but as far as design cost, yes. And as far as knowing what the cost of the building, now granted, with what we've seen in today's market of inflation, gas prices, you know, the same building in 2016 cost $16 million. In today's world, it's 28 to 30 million. So, I mean, but it's the same materials, same everything. It's just the cost of materials, so.
All right. And let me ask you a couple questions about your firm. Do you use any local contractors to Wilson?
You know, we anticipate trying to use local contractors. Now, when I say local contractors, in a state bid process, you've got to open it up.
Oh, yeah.
But what we try to do is we try to pre-qualify. In the state statutes, you can pre-qualify contractors. Now, as far as Wilson, I don't know what type of contractors that are here, but, you know, we can vet those. Secondly, as far as design professionals, if there are design professionals that you guys have worked with, like PM&E, we've had school systems said, look, we like this mechanical engineer. They've done everything. Would you guys work with them? And we have. Onslow County, they had an electrical engineer and a HVAC, different than our PM&E that we worked for 20 years. I said, absolutely, because they know your system. Yes, we do that.
Is your firm or any of your affiliated firms currently in any litigation or settlement negotiations?
No, sir.
All right. What is your current workload?
We're busy. If I was standing here saying we were not, we are. But as far as workload on new projects, we just finished up the Fremont, which is bidding now. We're working on a middle school right now in Anson County, and that's just on the boards. That is another prototype, by the way, which we're basically finishing up the drawings there. And we're doing a lot of ESSER projects, that type of stuff. But as far as a project, if you guys would say, look guys, we've got X amount of months to do that, we're ready. We're ready.
All right. And last question, how often, if you were awarded the contract, how often could we expect to see somebody from your staff on site?
As a matter of fact, that is a great question, because in some systems, they want to see me or a member of our staff once a week, and that's what we've done. In Onslow County, they actually put it in the contract, and we had a person, I wasn't there every week, but we had a person that we've hired that was on site that wrote a report up every week. Now, in the start of the process, you may not need that, but some school systems want it, and we provide it. I mean, and just like in Wayne County right now, we're doing the same thing. We've got a bunch of ESSER projects. We've got the same person going up there once a week to do a report. And if the board wants me or someone to be here to report to you guys at every board meeting, we're here. And that way, it keeps the board informed so that you don't have to hear from somewhere outside these walls, what's going on with the school, what's going on with this? you're abreast of it. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
I was wondering when you had said one of the four of you see throughout, and I'm going, they're all the way in Matthews, so what's going to happen in that regard? So thank you.
We are here. The young lady outside has said, well, Matthews, that's a long way. I said, actually, Wilson is closer than Gates County. We've done work Gates County. They wanted us up there every week. We're there. Onslow County, every week. So if you guys, Wilson is right here, just right outside of Raleigh. So if you guys need us here every week, we'll be here. I travel, this is close. I travel everywhere from Washington State. Right now, we're in Washington State, Oregon, Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona. So this is close to Matthews, and I would love to be here at home.
Madam
Mr.
Chair.
Mercer?
Yes, sir. In past projects, have there been cases where there were $50,000 more or more of non-owner change orders?
That's a good question. We have had some areas, especially down in Onslow County, where we ran into some bad soil. And that one was like $250-some thousand. But in the bid, we tried to put an allowance to cover these unforeseen things. And that covered it. So, yes, for me to stand here and say that, no, there's not, yes, there's things that happen without our control. Now, in things that are under our control and we've missed, I had a mechanical engineer mess up on a project. And the owner, the mechanical engineer said, well, tell him to sue me. I said, huh? It was $20-some thousand. So we paid, Pinnacle Architecture paid to get that finished. And that was in Wilkes County. And that was in 2004. And today, we're still in Wilkes County doing every bit of their work. We stand behind what we do. We don't leave it up to you guys to take the brunt. If it's our problem, we were just down in Charleston the other day on a little bitty upfit. Less than $20,000. There's another situation with the mechanical system, too loud. I told him, I said, if it's our fault, we will pay. And I told the contractor, find out how much it is to quieten the system down, and we'll pay. The owner right then said, I'm good. We will stand by our stuff. And that's the reason a lot of people hear about Pinnacle Architecture. Ask anyone. We do not run away from any issue. Thank you.
Thank you. In the past 3 years, have you had projects that were delayed for more than 2 weeks? If so, what were they and why?
Delayed meaning contractor-wise, or
Just
what kind of delays?
if you,
We've had issues with deliveries, with material deliveries. We've got that right now. And we've got problems right now with roof materials. We can't get ISO insulation, and that has delayed projects. So yes, we have.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Barnes, Ms. Boyette, Ms. Powell, Mr. Breen?
Just one question I've
Yes,
asked before. Does your architectural firm hire any, if many, or many, if any, minority-owned businesses when
Yes,
you're doing
ma'am.
your contracting work?
Yes, ma'am. We've got a structural engineer right now.
Uh-huh.
That's minority. We've got a civil engineer, that's minority. Absolutely, yes, ma'am. And like I stated, if there is people that you work with that are design professionals, that you would guys say, we would love for you guys to work with this person, group, whatever. We don't mind talking to them, working with them. Now, I'll be honest with you, we had that happen to us one time up in Sparta, North Carolina. The school board wanted us to use a design professional. We used them. There were issues, and it came out of our pocket. So, and then that board said, we apologize. I said, that's all right. I hired him, and you hired me, so we'll take care of it. But that's why I'd like to vet any person or firm.
Bless you. Thank you.
Ms. Boyette?
I'm looking at this list of your projects, and I see that almost everyone is under budget, and on time. How does that happen? How do you make sure that happens?
Just like we were talking about, the people that are on your project, you're looking at Cameron and I, the Lexington bus runners, we were at the job site yesterday. You'll see either myself, my partner Frank, Cameron, or Greg. You'll see the guys that's in this room at the job site. And with that, we can answer questions on the spot that you don't have to wait. The contractor does not have to wait for an answer. Oh, I'll get back to you, I've got to figure it out. We get it done. So.
Do you include in your contract with the owner penalty clauses for failure to be on your deadline?
Absolutely.
And I, like Mrs. Boyette, saw that most of yours are on time, one or two that were either over budget or off schedule.
That is correct.
Okay.
And with that, there's a caveat to that being on time. If we're working with the owner, if it's our fault, absolutely. But if we're delayed by some reason, and once we're in that process, that gets worked through. So yes, ma'am.
Okay, what do you foresee with a demolition and a total rebuild would be your timeline?
Demolition, well, with the demolition, at Meadow Lane, we had to build that school on the adjacent site and tear down half of that school to build the school, and they were still in operation, and then moved forward and finally demoed that site. With the site that you have now, demolition, normally, if it's an entire school, it's probably 3 to 4 weeks demo. And then then if it's going back on the same site, then we'd have to prep the site. And it would normally take, if you do a prototype like this, we built this school in 12 months. And with the contractors that have built this prototype school, there's 4 of them that have built it, that have said this is the most contractor-friendly building we've ever built. And what that means to me is once they get the plans, they can take off and build it.
So if it's a prototype school at 12 months and a demo at 3 to 4 weeks, so you're saying that from start to finish, you could have the school ready in 1 year's, 13 months' time?
It's possible.
And if not a prototype, then what would be your estimated time?
You're probably looking at maybe 18 to 20 months, probably, something like that. And this,
Plus the demo?
that's correct. And this is depending on, just like today's world, it's the products that you're buying. I mean, that could hold a project up 4, 6 months, and the contractors are at the mercy of getting their project, the supply chain. That's correct.
Mrs. Powell?
Yes, a couple of questions, but I think, I looked in the book and I think one was answered, but I see that you have Dr. Watson, you said on your team, and I realize that a lot of times, architects don't have someone of this expertise on your team, but what made you come to realization to actually have him as a partner? How did you pass across, and how long has he been with you? I'm very impressed by that.
Thank you. Dr. Watson was a superintendent in Lincoln County. We built 2 middle schools in Lincoln County. He was impressed with, just like we're doing, how we worked. Dr. Watson grew up in Wilkes County. We had just finished 4 middle schools in Wilkes. Well, in his travels back and forth, he would see that middle school going up. So at his retirement, we did not have an educational consultant on staff. And I asked Dr. Watson, I asked him what's he going to do after retirement. And this has been, 10, 12 years ago? Long time. He's been with us a long time. He said, I don't know why. I said, we're architects, you're an educator, and we do a lot of schools. We need help in laying out schools. And he said, let's try it. So we tried it, and I hate that he's not here. If you guys haven't met him, you will love him, because what he does, he comes into a committee, and with teachers, whatever, and he will, with us, will start asking questions. And he knows the right questions to ask, because a lot of times, if you haven't built a school, you don't know the right questions to ask. And he will pose those questions of what, and I'll be honest with you, he's helped me tremendously, seriously. And we're just like 2 peas in a pod. And he called me, he said, Randy, I'm sorry, I cannot be there. I said, we'll try to do the best we can, but hopefully they can meet you later on.
That's good, I like that. And we mentioned prototypes, we're talking about prototypes. Does that include your handicap accessible?
Absolutely, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. This, if you'll see this school, it's all on one level. And depending on site constraints, if you got a site large enough to do it all in one level, that is the best situation. Now, we've had to go up, like up in Wilkes County, do a 2-story. You still have to have elevators, things like that. But security-wise, accessibility-wise, it's all on one level, and it works. So.
Other questions?
Could I ask one more?
Certainly.
On your contracts,
Yes.
what are you figuring in for contingency?
What we normally do, depending on if it's a prototype, something like this, anywhere from 2.5% to 3%. If it's a brand new, anywhere from 5 to 6%, something like that. Because with this, like I said, as many times as you've done it, you know where the faux pas are and what's what, so that's why it's such a low contingency.
But the reason why I was asking is because I just randomly started doing some percentages, and you've got a 3% under, 12% under, 15% under, 32% under.
We've given money back to school systems. We have absolutely given money back. It's just like just like the grading at Onslow and other places, we try to anticipate so that when that project is bid, we have a number, and we have hopefully a guaranteed max of what this building's going to cost. We figured 10,000 yards of bad dirt in Onslow. It came in right at 9,000 some yards, but that was already in that price. So we've been through it for 30 some years, and we try to protect the owner of anything going sky high. Now, there's some things, just like in renovation work, that nobody knows, nobody sees. You got an oil tank that's got to get out or something like that. Nobody knew it was there. We've run into those, but we try to mitigate that as much as possible.
So who's actually the one that's approving like the amounts, the loads that are brought in, so so you're keeping tally of,
And with the school system, that is correct. With the school system, you've got to have a special inspector on the site. So as far as when it's graded, whatever soil that you put in, how much soil you put in, the compaction, that special inspector, which is hired by the school district. It's a third party, it's not ours. So it's hired by the school district. And the contractor cannot hire them, we cannot, and that's by code. With that, and then the quantities are measured by that engineer, that third party, and then that's where the quantities come. But during the bid, we get a price per yard of dirt coming in and dirt hauled off, so that you know what that price is going in. Just don't know the quantities.
thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? We thank you so much for sharing with us this afternoon and presented us with some interesting information. So we thank you, and
Thank you.
we will be back with you as soon as possible.
Thank you very much. We
Thank you.
appreciate the time and the courtesy.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Board, we have our next presenters for process today, Skinner, Farlow, and Kerwin Architecture. First of all, we apologize for the delay in your timing. We had a little late start, and we're running just a little tad behind, but we thank you for your patience and for being here with us this afternoon. And we're going to turn it over to you and let you begin the presentation to us.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Fitch.
You're welcome.
If we could just real quickly introduce who we have here, if that's okay.
That'd be fine.
I'm Brad Farlow from Skinner, Farlow, Kerwin Architecture.
Alicia Kerwin, Skinner, Farlow, Kerwin Architecture. Tanisha Memphis, Skinner, Farlow, Kerwin Architecture.
Yeah, Ian Skinner, Skinner, Farlow, Kerwin Architecture.
Richard Hearing, Hearing Sutton and Associates.
Steve Campbell with Progressive Design Collaborative, the PM&E engineers for the project.
So, thank you, Dr. Fitch and board members for having us. So, we're very excited about this project and look forward to talking to you today about Frederick Douglass Elementary School this coming project. And so we'd like to start by saying why this team. We have a great attitude. We love designing schools and we love working for Wilson County School System. We've been serving the Wilson County School System for 62 years. I looked it up this morning, and our very first project was done in 1960, and we've worked on every campus in your system. So you're a very important client to us, and we're very excited about this. We have a lot of experience doing schools. As I just mentioned, we know how to balance design and cost because those tend to be the most important issues that come up during the school design. We want to be innovative and make each project better than our last project, and we want to design for the next generation. So as we learn about how people learn, we want to incorporate those things into our new schools. The firm is owned by myself, Alicia Kerwin, and Ben Skinner, and we're the people that you will talk to and interact with and collaborate with on this project. We're the owners of the firm, and we think it's important to understand all the different viewpoints when you're designing a school, from students to parents to community members to board members to anybody who's interested in the school, including maintenance and all those types of things. So those are the reasons that we think we're good for this project. And I'll just mention a couple of people on this slide that didn't already introduce themselves. CLH Design, Renee Pfeiffer, they will be doing the landscape architecture and traffic planning for this project. Susan Easterling from Gardner McDaniel will be our structural engineer. And Kelly Wilcox will be doing roofing and building envelope consulting. And one of the really important things that people that we've added to this project since we sent in our submittal is Mike Burris. He works at MVP. They're a cost analysis firm. So we think it's going to be really important, especially since the inflation that's happening right now, to keep that under control at each phase of the project, to look at what the costs are and make you the owner aware of that, and what can be done at each stage so that we don't get to the end and have a big surprise. So this is just an organizational chart of how we would work with all those other firms. And as I mentioned, Ben and Alicia and I have a lot of experience doing school projects, and this just lists some of that. But also, we think it's important to develop our younger employees. And Tanisha's here. She's one of our architectural interns, and she'll be working on this project as a project designer. She went to architecture school at State, a master's degree and undergraduate degree. So we also think that supporting underserved or what's the right word? Underrepresented. I get confused. Underrepresented people in the field of architecture and engineering what can we do about that? Because it is an issue. So every year we give a $2,000 scholarship to an underrepresented person, young person who's going to become an engineer or an architect. And last year, the recipient of that was Matthew Yelverton at Watt, and he's going to East Carolina for engineering. So that's something that our firm believes strongly in. This shows our experience with Wilson County Schools. You can see, I think we've touched every campus. I don't think we designed every single school building, but it's maybe all but 2 of them. Our latest elementary school in this county was John Jones, which was done 2008. So, and currently working on the Wilson Academy of Applied Technology, which is coming along nicely. But we also work in other school systems. We do a lot of work in Wake County. This is the map of the Wake County schools that we've done. We've done work in Johnston County, Northampton County, and also Edgecombe. And this is John Jones. You're really familiar with, I'm sure. It shows, this project and the next project shows sort of 2 extremes. One extreme where you have a lot of land available and you can build, sort of a spread out school that has plenty of room for growth, which this does. And it also even incorporates, the original design incorporated a middle school on the site. So when land is easily, when we have the available land, we can do a lot of things with that. But also designing on a site that's much more constricted, the Watt project, just being able to work with a much more constricted area, but also designing a really nice building that's going to have good daylighting even on the interior of the spaces.
We have a good familiarity with working within important cultural communities. A project that we were the design architect for was for Davie Street Presbyterian Church in the Prince Hall Historic District in Raleigh. This is what I would consider the center of the civil rights movement in Raleigh, stemmed out of this church. And to today, it is a very strong voice for the Black community, not only within Raleigh, but within North Carolina. And they love their church on the corner. It's really a beacon of the work that they do. And they really wanted to expand and have a fellowship hall and an education building that had like a really poorly designed, like late 90s thing that wasn't serving them well. And they really loved their church. They loved the windows. They loved the form of it. So how can we design a new building that speaks to that that speaks to the historic nature, but without being a replica, right? Without being a copycat, and still lets the building shine. And so that's what this project did, was really designed a new space for their community to serve the community. That is an important part of their mission. And so that is the design that we came up with, and we really feel comfortable working in that regard.
And just as I mentioned before, making sure that we talk with all the stakeholders in a project like this, administrators, facilitators, looking at keeping the building less expensive for taxpayers and low maintenance for the future of the school system. And so all these things are important, and it's a balancing act to get a good school that takes everyone's vision into account.
And so as we're talking about working with this community, with Elm City, with the county of Wilson, with you all, we would like to propose that we do some kind of visioning or work with the community and with you all as to what's important on this site. That can be anything from large meetings to smaller meetings with folks, where we can work with people in understanding what's important maybe about the site, what's important about the community. Maybe there are important elements within the building that they love, and how can those be pulled into something that is new, and involving them in that process is really important. Then as we move through design, we'll work with you on how can we design innovative spaces that support today's pedagogy, the way people are teaching, the way teachers are teaching, the way students are learning. Supporting differentiated learning styles, supporting the way education, and especially special education, needs to be met, both those students who are have high needs and those who are academically gifted. And intergenerational learning. There's a component where if older students need to come in or use this space as a place for learning after school for special programs, or they're
community-based projects with your older citizens that maybe this school could serve some needs there. So how can new schools both support what you call your typical student during the day, but maybe even the community after hours, or programs that combine those two can be very rich and community serving. And so embracing diversity doesn't just mean embracing what we think of when we think of diversity, gender, race, sex. It also means incorporating diversity in terms of the way we learn and the way we teach. You know, we have very different ways of learning, some of us by writing, some by reading, some by hearing, some by touch. And so being able to design environments that support that, and not only support that in their individual modes, but also the way children learn in groups or in smaller groups, right? There's some students who really thrive in an open, vibrant, you know, almost loud environment, and there are other students who that is not good for them, right? They need their personal space. And so creating a variety of spaces, which you see in this slide, that can be smaller spaces, and different ways to work within the classroom, group learning, and also just teacher-focused learning. And that supports our social-emotional learning, which is what I've touched on a little bit through here. But really, social-emotional learning really means creating safe spaces for students to learn. Having open, collaborative spaces that are easily seen from the classroom, that are safe, but for students to do peer-to-peer learning, or let's say fifth graders to come in and do their reading buddies with their first grade students. It also helps with the ability to both push into classrooms, or there are small spaces within the classrooms we can push in, or there are places we can pull out and work with students, you know, near the classroom. It really helps to support that kind of learning and that kind of teaching. And then also connections to the outdoors. And then on the far left slide, that's just an example of how we can see student work between classrooms. That's an art classroom at York Elementary. We can see the students working. Students love to show off what they're doing. And it's also a way to kind of keep an eye on the classroom, and as students walk by, get interested in what other students are doing within the classes. Next slide. And then creating a community hub. So York Elementary, which Brad will touch on in a minute, is really important to its community. We actually replaced the school. And this central stair is really the center of that school. And when they got in there on the first day, they just all were drawn to it. They love the space. It's a great space to show artwork, a way to incorporate the community. What you see on the walls there is they actually had a history in their old school that they'd made these panels of the history of York Elementary. It was built in the 50s. And they loved their mural. They took it up. We've got a place for it in their new school. So those are the kinds of things that we would want to work with you all on, and what is important to the community and how can it be manifest in a new school. And then exterior learning and play. It's not just playing ball, not just playing kickball, but there actually are places to learn. I think COVID has taught us that outdoor spaces can be really important in terms of an outdoor classroom, and what can you learn outside, not just playing outside. And another component of this is just how important outdoor spaces can be to the community and how important the building can be to the community. Both of my children went to Washington Elementary in Wake County Public Schools. It was the first Black or African-American high school in Wake County. It has a very, very strong alumni association, just celebrated their 95th anniversary a couple years ago. My kids love the school. It's on slated for Wake County to get a renovation. And my son said, "Mom, you have to get that job because you know how important that school is. And I don't want something bad to happen to it, you know." And I think that can be engendered in any school, but I think especially with Elm City and with Frederick Douglass, knowing what's important to that community and being able to either hold on to it or translate it into a new space is going to be really important. And we did that with York, with many of the things they have on their campus into their new school. So let Steve speak a little bit about this.
So with a new school, it's a major investment for y'all on the first cost, obviously, but it's also a long-term major investment that we want to make sure the school is as energy efficient as possible. These are some what we call energy goals to meet. And while it's important to meet those goals, we also meet with Mark and his staff, Greg, and everybody, make sure the systems we design are what they can easily maintain. Because as engineers, we can do all sorts of great stuff. But if it's not maintained, you don't get the energy efficiency of it. You don't get the expected life expectancy of the equipment as well. So it's a very important part of the life of the school to get this right up front.
And to follow on that, working with Steve in terms of just lighting, how the building works in terms of the energy, plug loads, all those things really help the students, the faculty, the staff, the community become good stewards of your energy dollars, right? If it functions well and they can use it easily, they can become better at using the space energy efficiently.
So during the design process, one of the things that's really important to us is to look at all the options that we can think of, because in doing so, even if we show you some options that may not be perfect or, exactly what you had in mind, at least that's a good way to get feedback from the committee or local people to, what is important to them. Because if it's not shown in one option, then maybe it's a little better in another one, and it opens a dialogue. So that's a really good way to get people to communicate about what they like, what they don't like. At this particular school, this is Woods Creek Elementary School in Holly Springs, which is under construction currently. And what was really important there was to look not just at this school, but at the future build out of the site, which is going to also include a middle school, which you can see on the south part of this site. So looking at it as a whole campus and how everything relates within it, how the traffic patterns are going to relate, where the front door of each school is going to be, and how you get to it. Those are all really important things to look at. And this is a floor plan of that same school, and Tanisha's going to tell you a little bit about that.
To touch on the collaborative process at our firm, something we did for the WAT project and that we would like to suggest for you guys is to conduct monthly and maybe even more frequently meetings to help with the design process, to help cater you guys' specific needs and to help understand the significance and importance of the school. This process really worked for us because, as you see in some of the spaces above, the way the classrooms are arranged and the gathering spaces that are created by the different sizes and allowing a diverse way of collaborating and communicating between the students.
So this is another elementary school in Raleigh. This is Lacey Elementary School. And it was a very tight site, as you can sort of see from the, I don't know if this has a pointer on it. Does it, you guys? No.
Work on the TV.
No.
Oh, you just.
But anyway, the lower left, right-hand corner is the site plan, and the new building's on the right, and the existing building was on the left side of that site. So the first thing we did was look at all the different options we could think of. I think we had like 12 or 14 different options. And from that, it grew into how do we keep the kids on site when we build this? And that's what we ended up doing. We were able to keep the children on the left part of the site, which was the existing building, save one of the buildings that was sort of between the two, and build the new building, which saved, I think it was about $3 million on a temporary campus. So they were able to stay here instead of do that. And then as you're doing that, how do you... It was a school in a community where, a neighborhood where everybody loved the school. So when you have a school that's well loved, you have to go back with something that's even better than what was there before. And so looking at daylighting, the scale on the street, where's the entrance, and all those type of things to make the neighbors be on board with it. This is another school. This is what we talked about a few minutes ago, York Elementary, which was also in a very supportive neighborhood of this school. You could drive through the neighborhood and there were signs everywhere that said, "We love the Bulldogs, we love York." So meeting with those neighbors, meeting with the students and everything at the beginning of the project, we learned what was important to them. And we were able to, the building on this project was in the upper right-hand corner of the site plan, and we were able to start construction on the left, sort of. So there was some overlap there also. And one thing we were also able to do on this site is, to the left of this is a city park, and they didn't have access to this site from any other spot other than the lower right-hand corner. So they didn't have a car and a bus exit. So in working with the city of Raleigh, we were able to get them to agree to let the buses come through their park. And so it made really a safer site for York. And you can see some of the collaborative spaces are in yellow where people can gather and do projects outside the classroom. And then what's important to the community, I know Frederick Douglass has a current auditorium. Most elementary schools have a multipurpose room which can be used as an assembly space. So on the left you see an assembly space that is multipurpose as a stage, and it has chairs that can come out so that you can use it for play or for meetings. But if it were determined that we needed a more fancy auditorium, that was something that we could do also. That's at a middle school in Wake County.
And so school safety and security, I know, are on top of everybody's mind, parents, students, your minds. And I think you'll notice in all the diagrams of all of the schools we've shown you, generally we have nodes or points where if you have about 4 teachers out in the corridors and you're at those nodes, you can see the circulation for the entire school. And we really try to aim for that in everything we design. When we walked through York with the teachers, they really loved it. We could stand at one stairwell and almost see to the other end where kids are going up the other stairwell. And when you're one teacher or even a teacher with a teacher aide and you've got kids strewn out in the hallway, you want to see where they're going, what they're doing. And it's just so important for schools to do that. And of course, a secure vestibule. We usually use SEPTED principles when we're designing through the whole project.
So in an elementary school, as I'm sure you're all aware, the lower grades have to be on grade level, accessible, and all of their spaces that they use also have to be on grade level and accessible. So you see the line where it says on grade and upper level. That shows you sort of a comparison of what needs to be on the lower level and what could be on the upper level if there were an upper level. And you can see in an elementary school, the second floor is going to be a lot smaller than the first floor typically. When you're dealing with a flat site, that can mean either try to get everything on the lower level, and if we run into trouble with that, we could put some of the things on the upper level. And during the design process, we'll definitely look at what the possibilities are, and if it does need to go to partial 2-story, then we would look and see if are there other options? Can we acquire more land and make it work? What's the offset on the cost of an elevator versus a few more acres? So this is Frederick Douglass. Elm City's off to the left, and the existing baseball field is on the right. And there's a ditch that runs through the center of the site, which you can sort of see between the baseball field and the track. We don't think that is what's determined an actual stream, but in looking at what's possible on the site, our first thought is keep the building on the upper side of the stream, and so this is just something to show what a possible building might look like, and how much queuing you would need for a school that size. So there's enough queuing on this site, and keeping a separate bus entrance, and keeping the front door, at a good spot where people can see where they're going. And then construction administration, Ben's going to say a little bit about that.
Yes, so I'm in charge of the construction administration for our firm. It's something I'll be involved with. I also review all our drawings for QA/QC to make sure that if anything that I see in my past experiences, to make sure that we've got everything we need in order. I also write the project specifications for each of our projects. And during these type of projects, especially if you use a construction manager like, say, what we did at Watt, there'll be pre-bid questions, so forth and so on. So I'm heavily involved in getting those answered. I typically set up a pre-construction meeting where we kind of set the project expectations, what's expected from a quality standpoint, from a schedule standpoint, and so forth, and that really kind of sets the tone of the project. Set the relationships, which are cordial but not overly friendly, and to try to get the best job we can. Obviously, during the course of construction, I address any RFIs and questions, issues, and so forth and so on. I believe in visiting the site quite often. We'll have weekly OAC, owner architect contractor meetings that we do have. But in addition to that, most importantly, I make intermittent site visits, and these are actually the most important part of construction administration, and that is to make sure that we ensure that the project is built in accordance with the plans and specifications, and that that any deficiencies that we see or any errors or whatever are corrected on a timely basis, as well as the owner walking through for Wilson County. They do a great job of visiting the site as well. This is most important because we don't want problems later on, 5 to 10 years down the road that would come up because of something that was not done right during construction. So that's very important. We have a great roofing consultant on this project, Kelly Wilcox, who I've worked with for the last several years. She does an outstanding job with roof-related items there, and so she does a great job with the building inspection as well as design in that time. So then, of course, wrapping up the project, some of the hardest thing to do is get the project across the finish line. It's most important to not have it drag out. And so that's something that we're very attuned to doing and making sure that the dates are met as best they can be and that everything is, all the I's dotted and T's crossed. So that's what I'll do as part of the construction administration.
So just to summarize, these are the points of why we think we bring a good team to this project. I did want to mention also in the back there's a paper about construction costs and what's happening in the construction industry with not just raw materials, but there's a lack of labor, which also is leading to inflation. So we're leaving that in the back so you can read about that. But we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Members of the board, you have questions?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Mercer?
I have a couple of general questions. In past projects, have there been cases where there were more than $50,000 worth of non-owner change orders?
I would say probably.
Non-owner change
Non-owner.
Non-owner change orders.
$40 or $50 million projects, yes, probably.
I don't think we've had, from non-owner errors and omissions, if you will, I think that any.
Do you mean for the whole project or?
Yes.
For the whole project. I would say that we have definitely not had more than, it's never, even on a 55, we've done, say, for instance, a couple of $55 million middle schools in Raleigh, North Carolina, 230,000 square foot, those large projects. And on the first one, it may have been more than 50, it was under 75. I think on the second one, it was under 50, well under 50. And I don't recall any in York Elementary that were, that it was not 50 there.
So typically on a.
I think we've got its history, and I think, and you may certainly check with our clients at Wake County Public Schools, but I believe we have the lowest change order rate for errors and omissions of any architect that over the last 10 years average there in Raleigh, I believe, and double check that, but they did inform us of that several years ago, and I haven't checked the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's typically less than 1/3%. So, I know the percentage, but I don't know the actual number exactly.
Well, and in the past 3 years, have you had projects that were delayed for more than 2 weeks? And if so, what were they and why?
During construction?
Yes.
So at any one point in time, were they 2 weeks late from finishing from the original date?
Yes, sir.
So the only project that we have had that did not finish on time, that finished 13 days past what was their scheduled finish, was York Elementary. Gilvan was the CM, and it was built during the pandemic. It was started in the bid right before the pandemic, built during the pandemic. Started in 2020, and finished in November of 21. They were supposed to finish November 2nd. They finished November 15th. But other than that, all of our Wake County schools have finished on time, knock on wood today. We are hoping that lots will finish on time. I will tell you that right now, there is, and part of that article that we're
Yeah.
reading that kind of addresses this, is that we're in unprecedented times of material shortages. And to be honest with you, that is causing delays in every construction project for everybody.
It goes beyond construction projects
Yeah,
too.
yeah, you're right, it's like a car. But the problem is, right now, for instance, switchgear, main switchboards that you need for a school are over a year out from the time they're ordered. We're fighting that same dilemma right now at the block. And because of the time that it was ordered, which is no fault of the design team or the owner. But it's something real that you have to deal with. So they're the biggest things we have now. But our projects have finished on time, and so really, that's it.
Thank you a lot.
My turn?
Your turn.
The design that y'all would use, could you design it so that the school could be replicated on other sites? So that we could use it on other sites if we were to decide in the future to continue building?
Well, we could, and we did look at whether or not John Jones would fit on this site, and it just won't because of the configuration and the amount of queuing that you have to have. Absolutely, you could use this. It may end up being something that's sort of unique because of the way the site sits, but there would be nothing stopping you from doing it. I'm sure you could.
Does your firm have a prototype school?
We do. We've done lots of prototypes. We've done, Wilson, in Wilson County, Darden, and...
Well, the middle schools here,
Middle
prototypes,
schools.
Springfield, State, and Darden. We've done middle school prototypes in Raleigh.
That's been built 5,
well,
3 times plus 2 times.
3 times is the original design, then 8 years between the projects. They redesigned it a little. It was built twice, so it's been built 5 there. Currently, we haven't rebuilt an elementary, but I don't see any reasons why, if that was the desired here. A prototype would be able to be easily designed there and put on another site. And if you were considering that seriously, we would take that. That would be something that right up front we would have that knowledge as we design it.
It would be good to know that. And if you knew where you wanted to use it, that would also be good to know, just to make sure that we could design it so it would fit both places.
Most of the sites in Wilson are not too tricky. That's the one nice thing about Wilson. It's fairly flat, Wilson County. You don't have some of the severe,
As a consulting engineer, we work with lots of other architects across the state, and we've seen prototypes get forced upon owners that aren't a best fit for them. We did one where it was a barred prototype where a school system like barred units, and it got shoved down the throat of maintenance guys who didn't want barred units on a brand new school. So there's pluses and minuses of prototypes and making that early decision to possibly save 1% in design or whatever may be in design, that you end up with a system that you don't want and you have long-term maintenance and higher utility costs versus the system you want. So I have seen it not be the best fit.
That's a really good point. The orientation of the school is important. So if you flip it 90 degrees, that's huge. If you flip it 180 degrees, that's not as bad because, as long as it's this way or this way. But if you take a school that's supposed to be oriented this way and you flip it this way, the HVAC has to be totally redesigned because it just doesn't work.
So knowing knowing the other sites.
Right.
That knowing the other sites that you might want to use this on could really help inform a prototype that you might want to use, so it's best for Wilson County Public Schools on those other locations.
Well,
This one is a little bit,
Well, any other locations would be to be determined.
Right.
But
even if you just sort of had an idea.
Right.
But I mean, personally, I like the thought of a prototype.
Yeah.
But I don't like the thought of a brand new prototype. I like one that has a track record. So that it's been critiqued.
The problem with the prototype, things that change over time, including the codes, change a lot over time, and they require you to redesign prototypes. Even like the stairway widths and things like that can change. So if it's too long between when it's used and when it, you know, there will be changes anyway just because of code issues. But also, as Alicia mentioned, the issues of, you know, learning, what we know about learning is different now than what it was 10 years ago. So those kind of things change too.
Well, Jones is an excellent school.
Yeah.
I've got
Jones-
2 kids there,
Jones is-
so.
I mean, and we've actually proposed that as a prototype several times, and it just has not worked out that way, but, yeah.
But that could be a prototype for a different site later.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
A bigger site, yeah, definitely could.
I mean, because basically you have to deal with the orientation and then adapting it to the property.
Yeah, if you have a big property, it's much easier to use a prototype.
All right. Does your firm use many local contractors?
So, when you say contractors, do you mean our contractors, like our engineers, or do you mean?
Engineers, electrical contractors, general contractors?
Yeah, so we are not in control of that part of it. The construction manager, who will actually build it, is going to be in control of that. Hopefully that they solicit bids during the bid process from local contractors that are all capable of building a building. We encourage that. Of course, obviously, Richard Herring is local for our site civil, but like, for instance, at Barnhill, now Watson is doing that job. And then you got Reddick Construction Company from Wilson, North Carolina, is the grading contractor on that job. We do encourage that to get all the local participation that they can get. And I do think, and also get any local temporary help or whatever labor help that they might have for their different trades, you know, that are not, say, certain subcontractors, but the other work within the project. So we do encourage that and to get that.
All right. In your contracts, do y'all allow for escalatory clauses?
In our contracts, do we allow for escalation clauses?
Yeah.
As far as.
Usually when something's bid,
Well, I mean, with the way that material's moving in today's time, I mean, do y'all go ahead and lock it in and not allow for it to rise?
Well, that's a great question. That's, again, part of the construction manager's responsibility to have that. During these kind of volatile times, we have seen a lot of times, and this is discussed with the owner during the bidding process, say it's asphalt as an example. There was a time asphalt was escalating out of control, couldn't control it. So they actually had an escalation allowance in. And if it wasn't used, the owner got it back, you know, whatever it was used. And so that's something that, in thinking ahead, that may come into play on this school, for instance. It might not be asphalt, might be something else. But it's a good thing to have if it's an area in the market that you know is going on right now and there's no end in sight to it. So whether it's structural steel increases, you know, they're out of control, spinning out of control, aluminum with all the war going on and everything else, there's a shortage in aluminum prices spiked tremendously, something like that, then that's where, and that's the format of which that's done.
One thing that happened on the Watt project, we had heard and we knew from joist manufacturers that they were getting really long lead times for steel joist. So as we were designing the project and really toward the end of the project, we asked Barnhill to look at, you know, when do they think they can get the steel, what's the cost, and what would there be an advantage to changing to beams. And it ended up for the Watt project that they thought they could make it work with steel joists, and so we were able to keep the price down even though there was a really long lead time for joist. It worked in with the project, and they knew they had to order it really early. Other projects we've had, they weren't able to do that, and we switched to beams. So, you know, you have to redesign the roof basically at that point.
All right. Is your company or any of your affiliated companies currently involved in any litigation or settlement negotiations?
Our company has never been involved in any litigation at all.
Ever.
And I don't, well, the people in the room, I can definitely tell you for them, no. And I don't think any of them have.
CLH is not, I know they have not.
Yeah. We wouldn't want to let any problem get that far.
What is your current workload?
Current workload, I think I have a slide about that. Let's see. Oh, I'm going the wrong way, sorry. So this is our current workload. Woods Creek Elementary School, which we showed you in this presentation, is under construction, so that's keeping Ben busy right now.
As is what?
As is what? They're both keeping him very busy.
And the Wilson County Schools renovations, they're
Yeah.
under construction, scheduled to be completed in the fall.
Right. So in design, we have one school that we're working on in Wake County. It has a really long design period, though. It's like almost 2 years, so it's not, it's something we're working on, but it's not taking huge amounts of time. We do some work for Wake Med, which are much smaller, like clinic buildings that are some in design, some in construction. And we're getting ready to work on Harvest Medical, and that's a small renovation to their building, and Massey window replacement, which is right next to Watt, right? Yeah. That's under construction. It's almost, it'll be finished. And then a small project at NC State. So
All right.
this fits in well with our workload, and we would love to work on it.
All right. And my last question is, if you were awarded the contract, how often could we expect to see a representative of y'all's company on the site?
During construction or during design?
Construction.
During construction, at least twice a week.
Yeah, that's minimal, twice a week.
Yeah. Ben lives here in Wilson.
Yeah,
so
well,
he-
not just that, I mean, like I was saying, we obviously have weekly meetings. And there may be a week or two a year, I mean, I'm only there once, there'll be weeks I'm there 4 times. There'll be weeks there I'm 3 times. Most of the time, it's 3 times. 2 times is pretty essential during the main work of construction. I feel like to appropriately look after things. I think the weekly meetings are great and all that, but I like to come intermittently. Just, I'm coming on the site and I'm gonna do an inspection. I don't call them, I don't do anything. They know when I'm there, but I mean, and I think it's important. And all my consultants, PEC does a great job with field inspections. Structural engineer will be fine. There's third parties that do that as well. The site inspections, just like civil, will be on site making their inspections at appropriate times. But the only way to keep your pulse in the job is you gotta go. You gotta inspect the job. And again, I say it is critical because inherently you're gonna find things. It's not maybe on purpose or anything like that, but you're gonna find them. You have to have experience to know when and what to look for when certain work activities start. Whether it's pouring concrete, whether it's laying masonry, whether it's drywall, it doesn't matter what it is, you know what to look for and to make sure you get a quality building, because that's the time. There's nothing better than having it done right the first time. It's never as good done the second and third time as it is done right the first time.
Thank y'all.
Ms. Powell, Ms. Barnes, Ms. Boyette?
No question.
I just want to make a statement, I'm sorry, a statement, it's not a question, but I was just
Okay.
sitting here thinking, you were here Monday night, and then you came back again today, and I just want to thank you for giving us your time freely in your service. You could probably be many of other places looking at all the workload that you have, but thank you for coming back and giving us your time and explaining all these things to us.
Absolutely. Sure.
Mrs. Boyette?
Yes, I'm looking at your budget cost page, and I see you have 4 projects listed. One was under, but the other 3 are all over budget. And the one I'm most familiar with is the Watt project. This was from the documents that you gave us with the Watt project. And it says the budget is $18 million, and the last numbers that Dr. Mills gave us had it at $24 million with an asterisk that says not including furnishings. Help me understand the over budget cost.
So the Watt project was designed based on a budget that was 15 million plus 5 million minus fees and furniture. So that's how the $18 million was determined at the beginning. We knew from the start that that probably wasn't going to be enough for that project, but we needed to proceed forward in order to find out exactly what the price was going to be. Like I said, the original budget came from the grant plus the 5 million. There were some things that were requested that weren't necessarily originally thought of as part of a high school, and one was the gym and the seating for the gym. But, you know, the Wilson Community College really wanted that, so that was something we had in there, and we knew it was beyond the scope of what we thought.
The gym was added after the budget was set up.
Right. And so, I mean, we knew that was going to be over budget from the beginning, but we had to do some work to find out how much over because of inflation and other things. Typically, and that is one of the reasons we added the cost consultant to this job, because we know even if you hire a construction manager who will be giving you costs at schematic design, at design development, and at CDs, they need a check on them, so that we're going to provide that check. And the person we've hired is very familiar with construction costs. So they'll get together at each phase and talk about why they had so much in for concrete, or why this person had more in for asphalt. And they'll come to an agreement, and they may not be exactly the same, but they'll get pretty close. So we found that that's a really good way to keep costs under control. And I think it's important to keep you all informed about that during the process.
Is that it? Mr. Breen,
I'm gonna keep
nothing?
the streak alive.
You're gonna keep the streak alive, all right. When you talk about your zero low energy, does this mean more or better use of LED and other advancements versus solar or other entities?
So we will definitely be doing LED, and I'll let Steve speak to that, but as a matter of course, all the lighting in the project will be LED.
Yes, ma'am. And we'll also do an evaluation once we get the building masked to see what the future, you probably can't afford it now to put LED or photovoltaics on the roof now, but we can analyze it and determine how much you could do that in the future. Is that grants or something became more affordable to do that, to make it a net zero? But what we can do is very low cost to make it net zero ready. We run conduit, we allocate space for the inverters down the road, and we prep it as best we can to make it net zero ready. But part of that analysis about the energy goals we're looking at of getting down to the KBTUs, which is just a number of how much energy a building uses, is to get it into the 20s. A building that's considered in the mid-20s in the KBTUs per square foot is considered net zero ready, and we can allocate enough square footage for future photovoltaics. It's just as a first cost right now, as a public school or any public entity in the state, it's pretty pricey. There's third-party private agencies that can do it, because they can take advantage of the tax credits. A public entity doesn't get that advantage to take advantage of the tax credits, so that's why you don't see in a lot of public schools.
Okay.
But making it, that analysis we did on that school, there was not enough roof area, so we had to put some canopies out over parking spots and the like, and put it on canopies to get it to be enough square footage to make it net zero.
From demo to construction time, what's your projected timeline?
From the time that
Demo to grading to prep to construction, just as you gave us a timeline estimate of February 2023, what's the estimated time between
from the time
demo and completion?
From the time construction is the construction time, I would estimate to be 16 months.
16 months.
I would think that would be on this particular project a reasonable expectation, given the site work, and there'll be some site work done on this project. I know the site, and it's a wet site part of it. There's going to be more site work done here. I mean, there'll be some soil remediation work that on this site because of the wet soils. To what degree, I don't know, but there will be some. So, but I would think, and we're talking about the school size. The number of students was it 600, 650-ish? Somewhere around in there. The size of the school, I guess, would be somewhere up around 90,000 feet-ish, somewhere in that neighborhood. But I would guess 16 months would be my guess.
Okay.
14 would be probably on the very tightest side, and I think 18 would be on the longest side, but I think 16 is probably, when the CM, whoever, or if y'all go on the construction manager route, I don't know if you are, but if you are, I would guess they would be looking at that kind of monthly time frame as far as.
And that's even given with the supply chain issues that.
Well, yes, I think, given that, I think that's a good question. There's so many unknowns there that, you know, having that discussion once they're on board is really the time to maybe define the schedule, because we are kind of in unprecedented times, but somehow I think things in the next year or so have to settle out to some degree. We hope they do. Because, yeah, some of the things like I was telling you about the switchgear that's a year out, that can really play havoc. And they have to do temporary measures, you know, to cost more money to the project, which you don't want to have to spend money on something temporary when you don't get the value out of it for the life of the building. So, it could impact that. We don't know as architects right now. I couldn't tell you that adds 1 or 2 or 3 months to the project at this point, because it's not far enough along to accurately guess at what time.
Okay.
And we tackle it on 2 different ways right now. Is owners are pre-ordering equipment, if your board is comfortable with that, and that you're spending, say, $1 million before it's permitted and actually under construction as a whole, which is not always comfortable for boards to do. We've also set in a 4-month procurement period before a contractor gets on site. We spent 4 months of ordering equipment and getting everything done, because they don't want to be on the site any longer than they have to be. So we kind of bid it and sat while we're ordering equipment and wait, and then mobilize based on your school schedules. To do that is a couple of ways we've done to help, but there's still no guarantee right now. It's like Ben said, it's out of our hands.
That would be a good reason to hire a construction manager, because they could help you with that. Not only to know what things they need to pre-order, but to be able to do it for you, you know, pre-order it without us having to bid and worry about who's going to get the bid and are they going to be the person who's going to do the whole project later. You know, that it eliminates that problem.
Okay. And do you include a penalty clause for failure to be on time with your deadline?
Oftentimes we do.
Oftentimes there is, and that's something we discussed with and each owner kind of does it a little differently. But that most of the time in public schools like this, we do have liquidated damages that we have incorporated in the project. We have also done that on some of the projects in the past in Wilson County Schools. And so, yes, a substantial completion date is we set the schedule, substantial completion date is tied to that, and then a final completion date. And so most of the time that's done, and of course that also has to be set up and approved through your kind of your legal counsel there as far as, you know, the way it's done. But typically we do have liquidated damages on public school projects.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions? Well, we certainly thank you for taking the time to come and share with us today. And we will be deliberating and making some decisions, and we thank you again for coming to us today.
Thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.